Hello and welcome back to the making of the Chapel of Zenith. As you can see from last time, I have gone ahead and filled in the inner side of the archway here. Just so it's all in there and it looks really cool. What I did do is I hid the actual arches, so if I unhide those now you can see what it looks like with them on. And it looks pretty cool, so front and back are exactly the same. And then the doors can go just behind here. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So today's video is going to be the making of the side wall here, which should be quite straightforward and simple. So I'm just going to put this onto the other side. And I'm going to make a cube. So I've got my cube in here. So I'm going to put this to the side here. Make sure I'm in wireframe mode. Just so I can get the I'm not forgetting to line these up, of course. And the front part needs to be lined up as well. So I'm just making sure that everything's lined up before I go ahead and create the side wall, because I want it to be more or less exact. So I've lined these two up now. So I can go into the view here, bring that to here, and now I can start editing this. So again, it doesn't need to be that thick, probably about to there. I'd say this. Yeah, I think that's an okay thickness. And I'm going to bring it, just bring it in to there. And that's going to go right the way back to here as well. I know it's super long, that wall, but we are going to split it, and I think we'll make this chapel a little bit, because that's very long. So now that we've got that, I'm going to move this in a little bit, just so it's not as long, because I don't want it too long. So I'm going to get this to where it looks about right. Yeah, that looks about right. And we'll just bring this in. And again, we're going to put a line along here. So in this direction. And this is going to be for the extrude that we did. So again, this is both sides. And we are going to come here. I'm going to come here as well. So ES to extrude it out just a little bit. May need to come out a little bit more. That'd probably be easier in wireframe mode to judge how far out it goes. So I'm going to bring these out about there. That looks about right. And then we can just go ahead and fix these parts that have come out. And they may be a little bit too thick. I'm going to bring them in just a tad. So that looks about right there. And of course, not forgetting to select the whole thing and make sure they're as straight as possible, both sides. Of course, we're going to raise this up as well. Just so it more or less matches. And then these sides can come down. Just so it matches up with that. This side here. It's just a case of playing around with it just to make it look like it's meant to be. So I think that should do it there and there. Yeah, that looks about right. Just got to make sure that this is why it's quite important to line up the back and front, because otherwise you're going to get little gaps and it's not going to work with this here. So what I want to do is I'm going to come in here, select those vertices. I'm just going to pull them out just a little bit, just so I've got a bit of a thicker wall. And of course we don't really need the underneath, so that can go. And the underneaths of these can go as well. Just saves on the poly count in the long run. Now looking at the reference image, that wall comes to about here. So I think that translates to probably about there roughly. So that's quite a good height. And it does need to come in a little bit more. I'm going to set the origin to surface, so that's in the center. And I'm going to bring it into here. Just making sure that it's all lined up. And that's looking pretty good. Now for the bit that juts out, kind of it is in the middle. But what I want to do, I want to duplicate this wall first, as I always do. I'm going to put one side, one the other, and I'm just going to line them up. Just line it up like so. And I'm going to make another one of these, another duplicate, just in case something goes wrong and I've got a backup wall piece to use. So because I'm going to do one side is going to be like a cloister, it's still going to have this bit that comes out of it, and it's going to kind of go in the middle, more or less, because the wall's going to be behind it. So this back part here will become probably part of the wall, part of the cloister. You'll see what I mean when I get to that stage. But for now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring in two of these. And I'm just going to bring them together. So they're about the same sort of... I'm going to make it not too thick, but... just so it looks about the same sort of thickness as those. So I think that's about right there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come across here, because it doesn't go all the way up. So I think it comes to about... yes, because the roof kind of comes down here, so it comes to about here roughly. That's the tip of the point as it comes down. And then what I can do is I can select those. If I go into 7, I can extrude it. It's about the same sort of thickness as here. And just make sure everything's in line then. See, it's come up. But that's probably just the way it's extruded. So I'll bring that down just in line, like so. And then this edge, I'm going to come into front mode and wireframe it. This edge needs to come down to about here. It can probably be a bit taller as well. Let's make it a little bit taller just so it matches that there. And then that brings a nice little part here. So this section here is going to be like the cloister, so it's going to come out here and here. So now we've got that. I'm going to come in here and select these two, duplicate them, bring them over, and just line them up. It's a good way to show that that's obviously too thick, so I can make it a little bit thinner now. So I'll make sure I've selected all those vertices, and I'm just going to bring them in just a little. Just so I've got a little bit of an overhang of this each side. And that's pretty much done, and then it matches these perfectly. So I'm going to need one on the other side. So again, I'm just going to join. I'm going to separate these first, because otherwise it's going to get a little bit messy, and I don't want that to happen, so I just make those their own thing. going to set origin to the surface. And then I'm going to make it part of this mesh. So selecting these, join. So that's all one thing. Duplicate it. Flip it by 180 degrees. And I'm going to bring it out just to here. And again, just make sure that I'm lined up. Which almost is. That's all lined up with that side. Now I can start doing if I do the cloister now, so I'm going to use this wall, I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm just going to edit this wall. I'm going to bring it here, bring it out. Now it's not going to need to be that long. So just bring that in, just so it goes behind there. So it looks like it goes in, comes out. And I'm not going to want it huge, so I'm going to bring it in to probably about here roughly. So it comes out quite a good way, and I can put a door in there. Yeah, that should be fine. And I'm going to duplicate that again. That's just going to come here. There's quite a rectangular sort of room, because this is where sort of like the priests are. So the bunk beds would kind of be here probably, and here, so they've got a little path. So again, I'm going to use this wall, duplicate. So rotate that by 90. I'm going to set origin to the surface, just so it's kind of centered. And I'm going to bring it into here. Now, I do want it kind of sloping down. So what I want to do is find my reference cube. And I'm going to put this at the front, just so I know how much to slope this wall down. So the entrance is going to be about here in the center. So with these two selected, go into wireframe mode, go into the front, go into edit mode, and then what I can do is select both those vertices and bring them down. So just so it kind of slopes ever so slightly. Of course, this wall can now come into here. And can come down. So I'm just going to bring that into here. And then the last step is just making sure it all lines up. Which I don't think that back one does. Not quite. I've got to bring that to here. And I think that one needs to come as well. There's that back one. Now for this front one. Just making sure that it is where it needs to be. And then these two can obviously squeeze in. going to bring this, flatten it out a little bit. There's a bit of a curve to it. So I'll bring it into here. And I shall bring this one into the same. Again, there's a little bit of a curve on that, so there we are. So it can come back a little bit more. This wall can come back a little bit more. Bring it to about there. And that should be spot on then. Let's bring the whole thing back. There we are. So that's looking pretty good. Just going to bring it about there. And then with the ends of this wall here, so these two walls, going to join those two walls. Edit mode, going to go into the vertices, and I'm going to straighten those up as much as I can. And then with these bits selected, all I want to do is do a little bit of an extrude. So I'm just going to come bring them out to about there, come into the front viewport, so that's looking quite good. And I think these need to come down. Yeah, so they need to come down, and that one needs... I may have to remake this wall because I don't think it's... Yeah, I may have to remake these walls. So obviously they're not really happy. So what I want to do is I'm going to come into here, just bring that down. Make sure that's flat. Because I think the problem was that it wasn't flat. So now that I've got that, I'll put that to surface again, so that's in the center. Duplicate that wall. By 90 degrees. Bring it. I think it'll look okay if I put it more or less on top of that. So sort of that ends. No, that wouldn't look right because it comes down and then it goes up. So I'm just going to move it back. It's all about just making sure that it looks okay. Now these front parts, whilst I'm in this mode, I'm going to just extrude them just a little bit. So bring them to about here. And then this line can come down just to line them up. Yep, that looks okay. It just brings it out this way a little bit more. And then that whole thing could come to about here. Just make sure that you see it's kind of got that right the way around it there. Okay. So now I've got that, I can do the same this side. No way, it looks like that comes right the way around then. So that should be fine. Then using our cube as a reference, join those, go into wireframe mode, come to the front, go into edit mode. See, these are not lined up correctly. So I think it's the back one. It's not quite lined up. Yeah, the back one's not quite lined up. So I'm just going to line that up, just so it's important. Because what I want to do is I'm going to put a bit of a slope onto this roof. And I kind of don't want them two different heights, so I'm just going to bring it just above the head there. So it kind of tapers down. And I'm going to make it a little bit, select those, a little bit shorter as well. Because then the entrance archway can go about here, and they've got a little bit of room in there for like the beds and stuff. Just making sure that these are all lined up. So I'm just going to put Z 1 and 0 on that one. So it just needs to come down just like so. That should do it there. Okay, and just making sure everything's actually level. And then I can go ahead and put that wall in. So I'll just go ahead and I'm going to start changing this wall. Bring it down. So it brings to there. So bring that forward. Squeeze those in on the y-axis, just a little bit. And then bring them in even more. I like doing it this way because there's a bit more control over where the vertices end up. So I'm just going to make sure that these are straight as they can be. And put them in like that. Needs to come back a little bit more, but I think you sort of get the idea of what I'm doing here. Just so it all lines up. There you go, that it's looking pretty good. I only deleted that because it obviously wasn't the same. Sometimes the duplication doesn't quite work right. I don't know why, it's just one of the weird things in Blender, I guess. So now that looks okay. Yep, so that's the kind of cloistery bit done. So I could put actually yes, I think that would work better. It's all about just playing around, like I said, playing around, getting it to how I want it to be. I don't really have a plan as such as how this is going to look, so it's just going to turn out how I want it, really. I'll just bring that up again, because I am going to put a little roof on that. See, because the church roof is going to come this way, so that's going to have like a little kind of, well, that roof's going to come down to about here. So there's going to be another roof just underneath it, well, on top of it probably, just coming down in this direction. So I need to do a pointy bit kind of here. This side will need a pointy bit. It's just to give a rough idea of. So that's going to come to about there. And I'm going to bring these inwards towards each other. Create a bit of a slope. I want to see how high is that. Yeah, that should be about right, because that's kind of what I want. The roof comes, yeah. So I think these need to come in, and that needs to come out. That's fine, we can do that. So we'll select both of these, join both of those. So it's all about just getting it to look right. So I think I should put that just here. And again, I'm going to just bring that out there. And the other side, I bring out to here. I do want an exact match, so I will zoom in to get it exact. And then that should be fine. So I'm going to bring this bit up with an extrude to here. I'll do the other side in a second. So just bring so that needs to come down quite a bit. About there. Just so it kind of matches that wall. I'll bring these out as well. Bring those down. Okay. And that creates that sort of edge then. Now I can just pop that into place. Like so. That side into place as well. There you go, so that's the part of the cloister done. So the roof for the cloister kind of come off here. So the rain will run off. So now what we can do is, using our little archway that we did, I'm just going to duplicate this. And I'm going to bring it into here. Of course, we don't need it that size, so we're going to shrink it down a little bit. So I think that is wide enough, it's just too tall. So I bring that down to about there. Bring it out a little bit. Just widen it a little bit. And that'll be the part from there. I do believe it doesn't look right because it's squashed. So I may need to make the whole thing a little bit bigger, but we do that now, and then I can end this video. So what we want is, so it needs to be a bit bigger. So I select the whole thing, and I'm just going to make it bigger. In that way, this way, of course this way as well. So it's just giving it a bit more. It needs to be a bit like so, a bit wider, a little bit longer. bring that back to the center there. Of course, I'll bring that back up to here. And this is just so I can, because it does need to be a little bit bigger. So I'll bring it like so. And I think that should be more or less there. So I bring it to the center. Yeah, that looks fine. Bring it up so they're all level on there. And then these two. So this archway is basically big enough for two people to walk through side by side, which is what I want. So I'm going to get rid of one of those. Bring that back over here, and my smaller arch. We'll duplicate that and bring that in. Now that can come wider. A bit taller too. Just so it doesn't look as squashed really. Bring that to here. I'm going to put obviously a little entrance on it. So this can come just here. That probably doesn't need to be much bigger. So it just needs to come just out the wall just a little bit. Just by there, and then this can come out just a little bit more. There you go. So that's looking pretty cool. And that's where I want it as well. So that's looking good. So what I'll do, I shall select these and I'm going to join those. I will put one the other side. Just so they're the same. Bring that in. I'm going to make these walls a little bit taller. Just finishing this little part off, and I'll make that taller as well. So that can come up. So I'll just put it to the top there. And then this can so select that, and this can come up probably to about there as well. Bit more, but you get the idea. Just so it comes up. Bring it to there. And that's looking a lot better now. And I can bring this one in. And now I'm going to select both of these. I'm going to duplicate both of these. Bring them across. So RZ and 90. And one can go one side of the wall, one can go the other. this is just fleshing it out. So I'm going to bring that to where I want it. It's about there. Line these up. And then bring that one out of the wall too. There you go. And then that'll be the entrance to go into here. So that's looking pretty good. So now all the archways are done. I just need to do the stained glass windows, which is going to be one here, two here, one here, and then a big one here. And then that's kind of the outer structure completed more or less. I may remake these because the more I look at them, the more I'm sort of thinking they don't look great. So I think I will remake those. I'm probably going to remake these little bits here, but I'll cross that bridge if I come to it. I'm just making sure that everything's lined up. Well, I want it to be lined up. See, it's just a case of lining stuff up now. But it is getting there, so I'd say I'm almost done. Still a lot of work to go, but yeah, that looks fine. So that's the outer parts now. So we've got all the bits done that I wanted doing. Just double check everything before I end this video. Make sure everything is where I want it to be. Just a case of lining stuff up and double checking that. And I know there's a bit of overlap here, but I'm not too worried about that. Because I can just bring things forward a little bit. Because even if it goes in and then comes out again, that kind of looks like it's been built that way. So yeah, so that's looking pretty good at the moment. So in the next video, I'll be doing the stained glass windows. So I'm going to be making small versions for here and then the larger version. So I think the small version will be first. And then once the windows are in, I can start work on the inner structure, sort of like the beams and things like that. So I can either go wooden beams for the inside, which I think will look good, or I can do something like this, like archways down the middle made out of sort of stone, but I think it'd be timber inside. I think that would look pretty cool to have timber inside. Nice, quite thick timber. Just to frame it out. So I just have one here, one here, one here, and then across. And then I can start work on the roof and things. So what I want to do is essentially all the outside bits first, the windows, and then I can work on the inner part. And then finally I can do this bell tower. So I've got to work out how to do it, because I don't want to just bung it on top. So what I might do is, behind here I may do like a little square parts. There'd be like another little entrance part. So I may move this, but we'll see what happens. I think that'd be the best way to go. It's kind of like a little, unless I make that part quite a bit thicker, and I suppose I could make that thicker, and then I could put the bell tower on top, but I'll work that out when it comes to it. But for now, that's it. And like I said, next video I'm going to be making the stained glass windows and getting those in and cut out of this mesh. And then I can do the inner beams once the beams are done. So I'll do the windows first so I can see the placement of them. Then I can do the beams around them and make it look cool. And then I can go ahead and decide what I want to do with this bell tower. So I'm probably going to end up making this a bit thicker, and then putting it more or less on top. So I think that could work. Obviously these are going to be quite thick. If I look at the image here, it kind of does sort of just perch on top. So I could make something like that. It's quite thin, so the bell tower's quite thin, so I think that could work. But that's all for now.